Well, that was fun, guys. Welcome.
Hi.
All right. So, for Emily and Whitney, hi guys. I'm Natasha Wesbeck. I'm part of ECFI right now. Phyllis Miller and Kurt Bullard are in this frame with me. Mike Yoder's on, who is also part of ECFI. Do not see John Zirkle yet, and I think he's the only one who's joining us currently, and Phil? This should be recorded. Oh, yeah, and Phil. Phil was invited. We'll see if he dials on soon. Did he figure it out?
I'm texting him to see.
Okay. All right.
Technology can be a blessing and a curse sometimes.
Yeah.
This is Emily.
I'm not sure.
That was Whitney.
Okay. Yeah, if Emily and Whitney, if you want to introduce yourselves so we know which face is which.
Yeah, sure. I'm Whitney here. I am program assistant at LISC, which stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation. It serves as the and I serve in the program manager role for the Indy Food Council effort.
Program manager role. Okay.
Thanks, and let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm a little worried about my Wi-Fi connection here, but my name is Emily Toner. I work for Purdue Extension, Marion County, and I am part of the Indy Food Council staff. In addition to that, I do urban agriculture education and support the community of urban farmers, community gardeners here in Indianapolis.
Great.
I like you already.
You like her already?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Phyllis, are you trying to connect with John or Phil?
John just said, yes, I'm on Jody's web room now. It works. Are you going to join Jody's web room?
No.
No. Join ours. I sent you one. Jody's trying to get on too, then?
I don't know.
I didn't know Jody was going to try.
I mean, this is who we want to talk to.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, Jody, but.
Yeah. That'll be all right. Okay, so I think we'll just give the other folks like 3 minutes to figure it out. Otherwise, this will be recorded and they can figure out how to get on.
Need to start the question.
Okay. You guys have a limited time, correct?
Yeah, I need to probably hop off in about 25 minutes.
Great, and that's Whitney, correct? All right. So should I just start firing questions then, Phyllis? All right. Yeah, So one thing that we're trying to figure out as we're trying to develop into whatever organizational body we're going to be, whether it is a food council or something else, is trying to figure out where that energy is going to come from. All the current members are folks who are volunteers, have full-time jobs. We do have one intern through Purdue Extension, and we have a community organizer who's kind of on the team who works with this program, I guess if we're going to call it a program, and some other things in the community that have to do with food and sustainability projects. But yeah, where did the energy come from to start the Indy Food Council?
Sure. Before I answer that, how long have you all been, I guess, organizing, forming, and how did this vision come? Like, where did you get your start from?
Mike, do you want to answer that at all?
Can you hear me, first of all?
I can, yes. I don't know if I can see you, but I can hear you.
So the question was, how long have we been working at this?
Yes.
I don't know. It seems like it was about 2 years ago. I think we first started forming as a group. Phyllis was part of that initial discussion as well. Was it 2 years ago, Phyllis, or not quite that long?
Yeah, no, actually it was about 2 years ago, and it was a part of the Purdue Extension pilot program that we were accepted for the Food Shed Initiative, rebuilding the Food Shed Initiative. So we are a community, a county, along with Batesville. So at the time, I think what we've done is started to gather assets, and we've had some events that have brought community folks together. And we had the assessment from Ken Meter, thank you, for the developed from the Ag Census. So we had that data. We were able to share that with those that came to some of our events. And then we had someone that actually aggregated and did interviews with key assets to see where they felt like we could help. There were, Phil, are you on? Phil's
Yeah, I'm on.
Hey, yay. Okay, so Phil could probably fill in a little bit more, but that's kind of where we've been for 2 years. The original group was Mike, myself, Phil, Kurt, and John has taken over for the academic portion because we had a member pass away. So that's kind of where we've been. I think we're looking at how do we sustain. We heard our assets say that we needed, they need a means to be able to communicate and connect. So I think we're doing a great process for mission and vision and how we want to set up our org structure with Chris Parker. She's helping us go through that process, and we'll have our second meeting in a couple of weeks to try to develop that. So we were hoping to glean from you some of the journey that you've had and how you came up with how you look now, some of the lessons learned, some of the things you wished you would have done differently, and some of the things that hit it out of the park that you did well. Sure. So that's kind of where we are. We have people on the group that are healthcare, myself. Kurt is farming. Mike is farming, and he makes things happen in the government.
Okay.
Just cut to the chase. He's a politician.
And Phil is our community organizer and the strength behind the community input. And John Zirkle, I don't know where he is yet. He was getting on Jody's site, so hopefully he'll catch up with us. John, are you there?
No, he's not.
He's academia, and he's with our local Goshen College Sustainable Ag program.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you all have some good collaborators at the table from different sectors and some good research and stuff to back it up. Would I be correct in assuming that you all started from very much grassroots sort of community input in organizing your group?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yep.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess it's helpful I can share our story and our background and how we organized and got to where we are now. I will say that I joined in with the council in 2013. The council had been in formation since 2012, so missed a little year of the formation because I did not live in the city at the time. But the councils, similar to you all, came from input and research. So our local university here is IUPUI. It's a combination of IU and Purdue University. They have a master's program in the School of Public and Environmental Affairs, so they are required to do a capstone project at the end of each semester. So in the spring of 2011, LISC, which is the backbone, which I mentioned stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation. It's a national nonprofit that does community and economic development across the United States. The local office in Indianapolis procured this study through a capstone at SPIA, and it looked at food deserts and food access essentially for Marion County. So that document, if you will, explicitly stated the need for an Indy Food Council and the recommendations. So from that document, LISC partnered with Butler University, had a Center for Urban Ecology. So at the time, the director there helped partner with LISC, and then also Health and Hospital Corporation, which is Eskenazi Hospital and all of our health departments in Marion County. Those three individuals from those groups convened together and started strategizing of ways to bring people together to formulate a formalized council. We took a more programmatic approach to it to begin with, so we developed programs as tools to bring people together to work on something. So for example, the Indy Food Fund is a small granting process that we do. We're in our third year now, that essentially was the start of the convening of the organizing body of the council. So we had LISC fundraise funds for this granting process and disperse them back out to the community, just small catalytic food projects around Marion County. So the idea behind that was to bring people together. So essentially the review committee of that grant process blossomed into what we have now as our organizing committee first, and then the advisory board currently. Not everyone who was involved in the grant process is now on the board, but a lot of those same people who were involved in that process in the beginning are now on our advisory board. So that was kind of the inception of it. We used a funding tool, if you will, to bring people together and help source those funds. And if you have questions, just chime in as I'm talking.
Yeah. I had two at this point.
What's your funding? Describe funding tool.
Funding tool. Yeah. What does that mean for you guys?
Yeah. So it was a granting process. Basically, we fundraised from local community foundations, and then also got a small grant from the Funders Network to pull together funds to create a food grant, if you will.
Okay, so then you administer the food grant according to whatever project you deem fit?
Correct. So LISC is it's essentially a LISC project that uses the Food Council framework. I guess I should back up and say that we are a collective impact organization, which is kind of academic in nature and hard to conceptualize, but the Food Council itself is not a 501c3 or essentially a standalone organization. It's more of a coalition of various organizations and partners who are interested in food system change in Marion County.
Great. And I have two questions at this point. My first question was all that first big monologue you gave us. How long did all that take? To go from research to when you became an actual food council?
Yes. So the study, like I said, or the capstone was 2011. We had our first food fund round in 2012. And then so 2012, 2013 were internal organizing of our structure and kind of what we wanted to be. 2013, when I joined as the AmeriCorps, one of my biggest projects was doing the community outreach and engagement phase. So taking a series of 8 community conversations and taking the council on the road, if you will, who had formed its vision and mission and goals at that point, and took that to 8 different community centers, organizations that are invested in the community, took them and had these conversations that lasted about 2 hours with community members, getting their input on what the food access and food needs were in their community and what they wanted to see from a council. Took that back, we revamped it a little bit, and officially launched as a collective impact food council in the spring of 2014.
Great. So in that sense, it's kind of a 3-year process then for you guys, correct? 3 to 4? 3 to 4 or 2 to 3?
See, from spring 2011 was like the study. I would say 3 to 4. 2011.
So we're doing okay.
Yeah. And
we got
another
a year.
thing, no, like take as much time as you need. This work is not easy and takes a lot of time because it's all about a relationship building, right? So and that takes trust and time, and it's really hard, especially for collective organizations that intend to do these large-scale things. When you talk about food system change, it's not going to happen overnight. It might not even happen in our lifetime, but the core part of that is network building and getting the right people to the table. So don't feel discouraged. It takes a really long time. So,
great.
And we're still working on it. We haven't mastered it at all. So.
Okay.
Hey, is it Emily or Whitney?
It's Whitney.
Hey, Whitney. She's zooming you around to me.
Okay. Hello.
I have a couple of
Phyllis,
questions.
right?
Yes, I'm Phyllis. Yes, a couple of things that I see on your website. The collective impact. I'm really intrigued by that. First, I'm wondering, how did you decide on an advisory council? If you, rather than calling it a board or a steering committee or a team, or how does that work for you?
Sure. Are you speaking more in terms of who we decided to be on that advisory board, or just what we decided to call it?
Yeah, your advisory board is pretty large. One of the things that Chris has worked with us as we develop our mission and vision is looking at how our org structure would be. What do we want to look like to be able to advance the what we're doing to connect those assets that we have out there, because that's what they've told us. And through that process that she had us do to develop, it was a great exercise. Basically, we determined that it would be best if we were connectors. There could be initiatives that work out or develop from that connection process. We've already done quite a few initiatives, whether it really, in my opinion, would have happened or wouldn't have happened if ECFI or our Elkhart County Food Shed Initiative existed. There's some things that came out of some of the gatherings that we have. So I guess I'm trying to envision the org structure of how do you determine what worked best for you to come up with a collective impact and that large of an advisory committee?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It does. I will say that we were on a nonprofit track in probably 2012-13. We were discussing that. So we staffed and had bylaws that were structured towards a nonprofit structure, but then we decided that collective impact would be the best way because the council, like you mentioned, is a connector. So it's not really about like what we, the council, do. It's more about what our partners at the table do and how can we connect those resources and elevate that work and get people working together. It's essentially what a collective impact does. So that's why we were like, well, collective impact makes sense because we'll never have to get a 501c3. It is, I will say, kind of awkward to fumble into collective impact and how it works. It's very much academic and it's maybe looks different in a research paper as opposed to like a structure. And that's, I would say we're still figuring out what that looks like for us. There's a really good webinar. I don't know if you all are on Johns Hopkins food policy listserv or where their Center for Livable Future. They have a lot of good resources, and they just did a collective impact call as it approaches to food system work. So if you're interested in that, I would check out that webinar. I think it's recorded on their website, and I can send it to you as well. But for us, we already essentially had a backbone because LISC with the Food Fund helped sort of staff and support that. So I'm an employee of LISC, Emily's an employee of Purdue, but yet we dedicate part of our time to this collective effort. So we found that was better for us. And in terms of an advisory board, we are slated for 25, and that just came from our bylaws that we developed, and we just kept that. So the advisory board, 25 seats, yeah, of board members. And in the beginning, when we were choosing who those advisory board members would be, the council has, and you might not see this on our website, but we have 4 pillars or nodes in which we view food system work. And you mentioned you have someone in agriculture, someone from public health, someone from the community. We are similar in that way when we were forming and wanted to pull a formalized board together. We realized that food system work only works best with cross-sector representation. So we identified 4 pillars in which that we thought that food system work was happening in our community and would be valuable to pull these groups together. So those 4 sectors or nodes are public health, health and nutrition folks, community and economic development folks, ecology, so your urban growing, and then lastly, the hunger and social justice, so very much the hunger community. So those are the 4 that we found in our community that were prevalent in doing existing food work, and found it valuable to bring them all together in the same room.
Do you have any comments at this point?
So how does that look now? You have quite a few on your advisory council. Do you function like a board for decision making?
Yes, we are consensus, so majority vote basically. We don't follow Robert's rules or anything very, very formalized. And our board meetings have switched. They were bi-monthly, but now they're only going to be quarterly. We did this shift because we found that in order to better engage our board members, they'd be best served on a specific committee based on their skill set or a task force group. So the way the council is structured, we have an advisory board, we have an internal executive committee that has 3 or 4 board members on it, plus staff. And when we say staff, it's myself, Emily, another person. His name is Dave Herschel. He works for the Office of Sustainability at the city. So we meet bi-monthly, and we are considered staff. I am the only paid staff of the council. Emily and Dave are fortunate enough to donate part of their time because it fits with their scope of work already, so they can feel confident that contributing to the Food Council work will elevate their work that they're already doing in their organizations.
How much time?
How much time do I?
Yeah. How much time do yourself and the other two dedicate?
Well, I work part-time, so I work 20 hours, and I would say the large amount of that is dedicated to admin staffing of the Food Council. And Emily can chime in with what.
Yeah, and I would want to, so, yeah, Whitney said that we meet bi-monthly, but we actually meet bi-weekly. So we meet every other week as staff. And my time ranges from maybe as low as 5 hours a week and up to, in some weeks, half my time or more, depending on what we have going on for the council that week.
Yeah. So I know that you shared with us where your funding is coming from, but it might be meaningful to ask that question again. You're not a 501c3. Who determines or what are the logistics for funding? Because you have a really nice website, and you guys do a lot of navigating in the community. I follow you guys on your emails, and that costs. So how did you determine where to get that money and feel like it's sustainable?
In terms of operating funds?
Yes. Yes.
So LISC fundraised a good portion of it. So LISC pays me and pays me as admin. So a lot of that comes from LISC, and it's internal. It's food money that LISC has raised and has dedicated to the Food Council effort. Because we are a collective Purdue extension could essentially do the same thing. They could have funds and they could dedicate a portion to the Food Council, or we're working on a structure in which we are outlining what collaborative fundraising looks like. So anyone could apply for a grant in our organization and use our framework, but it would go to that organization and it would be dedicated to food work that would advance the work of the council. So you could use our vision, our mission, and our partners at the table, but it could maybe just go to Purdue to be something that would move forward urban ag, but yet it's still moving, inherently it's moving forward the work of the council because that's one of our priorities. Does that make sense?
Whitney,
Sorry, I heard 2 people.
Yeah, can I just jump in quick? Maybe one way to clarify, or at least for me, do you have some kind of fiscal sponsorship that is ultimately receiving the money on the front end, or how does a collective impact organization then actually receive funding and provide the accountability for that funding?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something I would say we're still figuring out because LISC is not the fiscal agent. Anyone could essentially hold funds for the council. The council itself doesn't have like an operating budget because it's not a standalone organization. So LISC might have a portion of food money, but that doesn't mean that's the Food Council's budget per se. Purdue could have a portion of, urban ag funding, but that doesn't mean that's the Food Council budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds pretty complicated, but it makes sense.
It is, and have honestly struggled with that as an organization and be like, well, how are we going to get this grant? And I will say honestly, that's been one of a hindrance for us is getting over that hurdle of like fumbling through what collective fundraising looks like and who's going to house it and what that means. And I think it will help us and we formalize a document that says like, hey, look, as your partner of Indy Food Council, this is what it looks like to do collective fundraising. You can apply for a grant for your own organization and use our framework and get a letter of support from us And essentially those funds would go to you, but we need to find a way to track and measure the impact of that work on our collective work as a council. But I don't think we're there yet.
So when we're looking at your advisory board, there's some really strong entities that are a part of that. Is that where you tap in to try to see if you can engage some grant writing, some funding from those sources?
Yeah,
Are you the one that receives that money and navigates that, disseminates it out to wherever it needs to be?
I think it would depend on the grant at this point. So, for example, when LISC received a grant for food funding, so they do community economic development. So that fits within their scope because they give out small grants to communities around community development projects. So it made sense for LISC to house that. But another grant might make sense for Purdue to house, or the Office of Sustainability house. I think it would depend on the grant and how we would internally work through that as a council.
Kurt, did you have a question?
Yeah. What do you foresee the Indy Food Council becoming impactful enough in the community to where the people that benefit from the Indy Food Council would consider paying like for a membership or an annual membership or a life membership into the Indy Food Council to where that could be a part of sustainability?
You mean the organizations or individuals?
Like a co-op. Yay!
Well, or just, I mean, you know, restaurants and producers and institutions would be, you know, have a $200 a year Indy Food Council
like being a
membership. But when I'm writing a check for a membership, no matter what organization it is, the first question is in my mind is what I'm getting for this.
Yeah.
Right.
And so once you get to the point, are you trying to get to the point where that membership is enough value that it will precipitate that membership?
Like an NPR membership, something like that?
Yeah, when I write a check to NPR, I know what I'm getting, and it's worth the money.
Right. Exactly. Renew your memberships. I think the pledge drive is coming up. But anyways, yeah. So it's interesting because we did have when we started, we were membership based, if you will. So I think it was free for individuals to like join, and then $25 for organizations. And we just did that without thinking of why we were doing it. And then we went through a planning process and realized like anyone essentially is the food council. So I mean, it's weird because we're just aligning work that's already happening in a more strategic way. So it's almost like asking people to buy into what they're already doing. So I don't know that we would go back to membership-based because we have buy-in already from who's on our board. And I think we could be more strategic in that because essentially like the Indy Food Council is everyone. It's very broad and maybe a little vague, but if we are advancing a large thing that moves forward something in our community, it's inherently going to benefit everyone in some sort of way. So in a way, everyone is benefiting if we're able to move food system work forward. That makes sense.
Mike, do you have any questions on the financial piece here or anything else?
I might jump in if Mike has any questions.
Is that Phil?
No, go ahead, Phil. I don't have anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to verify then. So, for instance, like your salary, or for instance, what's being paid by staff, do you have a specific organization then within the council that's basically handling that on behalf of the council?
Yeah. So I am essentially an employee of LISC, which is a national nonprofit that does community economic development work. So I'm essentially, my title is a program assistant of LISC, but I'm slated, my main thing that I do for them is livability and within that food. And because they are the backbone, I staff the food council effort is how that works. Okay. And I would say a large amount of my time is to admin of the food council, but I will do things for LISC, like in general, like I'm applying for like a health grant for LISC, but that health grant, if we got it, would benefit and move forward the work of the council, even though it's going through LISC, and I'm working on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And
I have
probably
about 3 more minutes before I need to get off, by the way.
Okay, do you want to ask about challenges?
And Emily can follow up more about our task force and other things.
Yeah, I'm just kind of hanging out quietly here because Whitney's going to leave soon and I want you to get as much as you can from her, but I don't have to sign off, so I'll stick around and keep the conversation going.
Great. All right, then Whitney, I'm going to ask you kind of a specific question.
Things that we're doing now.
Yeah. Whitney, just what information do you think only you can give about your experience being the 20-hour person, about what you've seen when it comes to challenges and your own personal vision being the person who's 20 hours a week for the food council?
Yeah, capacity is everything. Be realistic with the capacity that you have to offer. We run into this constantly. We have visions and want to do these large-scale things, but we need to be realistic in terms of capacity and what we have at our organization. So I would offer that word of wisdom.
Whitney, one more question I got from John. He's viewing. Hey, John. He's not able to join in, so he has a question. If our group were to be a collective impact org, do you have suggestions on who might be a good fiscal agent? Government, academia, nonprofit?
So yeah, we're looking at CCS, the Commissioner of Coaching College, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would suggest nonprofit. University, you would run into, for instance, if you got a grant through university, you would run into really high percentage admin costs of what they'd cut off your grant. We found that here. We can't run grants through universities because, I mean, they can get away with taking 50% off a grant. So that would not be worth it. So it's just a nonprofit that would take no admin costs or take very little. So LIST takes about 10%, which goes to staffing me and other admin costs internally. So I would suggest a nonprofit.
And tell us again why you didn't create your own nonprofit, or you pursued that then bailed from it.
Yeah, I guess I don't have like a concrete answer. We felt like collective impact was more beneficial for the work that we were doing. We found it more hurdles to jump through to get our own 501c3 status. When we had at least 10, if not more, of those statuses at the table existing already, just needed to find a better way to coordinate with it. So we had a lot of partners that already had like the infrastructure that we could use within a food council framework. So we just decided not to go for it and do this collective impact.
And Whitney, wouldn't you say that part of the reason was that we could staff the council without additional funding?
Yes.
We had enough commitment from the partner organizations that we could provide staff capacity without a grant. And so if you can move forward, I think that's one of the biggest things that people need to fundraise for is people's time. And we were in the position at that point that we could move forward without having to fundraise for that.
Because in looking at your advisory board, there is a lot of academia on it, but your advisory board kind of splits into owning subcommittees, that kind of thing, to move forward your initiatives?
Correct. And that's probably a good transition because Emily can speak about those committees and our task force that are aligned. We went through a planning process last fall that hashed out what our initiatives are, and now Emily's convening task force groups around them. And we recently started to delve into committees that tap into our advisory board members' skill sets, so we can utilize them to the best of their ability. But I'm going to, with that, pass it over to Emily, and she can speak more about that. I have a call at 11 that I have to jump on. But feel free, I think all you all have my email. Feel free to reach out to me. Look into the John Hopkins resource. That would be a good one for food policy councils. Also, Mark Winnie is a really good resource if you have yet to connect with Mark Winnie. He has a lot of resources on food councils informing that. And I'd be happy to share anything else with you, so don't hesitate to reach out to me via email or phone, whatever works for you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and a real quick question. If you've already done a lot of research on food councils, And one of the charges that I volunteered to do before our next meeting with Chris is to look at different org structures. I've been doing Google searches, but it's not real easy to find some good examples. If you have some good resources now that you know us, that you could email me, that would be great.
And one of our advisory board members did that when we were looking at our structure, so I can see if she still has something compiled to send to you. So
yeah, if I could connect with that person, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
You're
you, Whitney.
welcome. Yes. Best of luck in
Thank
your
you.
endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Keep in touch.
Okay. Emily, are you still there?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take the ball and run with it. But I want to say that I think my Wi-Fi connection is not that great. So if I need to turn off my video streaming to improve the audio, let me know.
Okay.
It's good right now.
Yeah, it's good right now. It
Okay.
sounds a little tinny every once in a while, but I think you're good now.
Okay, great.
So we've not heard from Mike. Mike, do you have any questions?
Well, I was curious. Whitney said that the purpose of the Indy Food Council seems to be they're just aligning work that is already occurring, but doing it in a more strategic way. Maybe you missed it, but what exactly does the Indy Food Council do? Because it seems like it's just creating efficiencies in a current system.
That's part of what we do, and I would actually argue that creating efficiencies is a really important job because there are so many people that are part of the food system and doing the work. You have a wide range of people part of your effort already, that the overlaps and the inconsistent communication just really slow everybody down. So one of the things I would encourage you to look at that has really shaped our work as a collective impact is the Stanford Innovation Center's literature on collective impact organizations. So that is something that outlines, like we're using the phrase collective impact, but it's actually an established organizational structure, and there are 5 functions of a collective impact organization. One of them is continuous communication, and it sounds like you guys have recognized a need for that within your food system community. So we do that through our newsletter, networking events, that sort of thing. That's actually an incredibly important function that nobody is incentivized to do on their own, and so the council in that space can be the connecting body for very, in some ways, disparate groups that are trying to make progress on similar issues. So continuous communication is one of our functions to facilitate that. Establishing a shared agenda is another thing that we do that is a collective impact function. One thing that we're building up to is having shared metrics, and that will be very important for the sustainability of the council and people's willingness to buy into being part of the food council, is that we can show progress over time. And I think that's going to be one of our most important but also most difficult tasks, because you're trying to measure the change in the system, which is difficult. So that's sort of our next to-do list item. But in addition to performing these collective
Emily?
functions that are, yeah.
What do you mean by a shared unit, or whatever phrase you used? Metric?
Shared metrics.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So if you read one of the foundational collective impact articles, they reference collective impact in the space of education. So collective impact can be in food system, it can be in education, it could be, we have a one in Indy that's all around the just hunger, trying to weave together the people in that space. But it's saying okay, in this area where we're working, so if we're talking about food system, if you think about the big markers that you want to move, so maybe that's childhood obesity or food insecurity, or if you're thinking more in economic terms, percentage of the food that is purchased by locally, those could be big things over time that we're trying to move for the food system metrics. But in order to do that, you need reporting from a lot of different sectors, and you need people to report in a synchronized way, I guess. And so a collective impact, one of the functions that it is supposed to perform is to get people to trust one another enough
All row together.
Uh-oh.
that they
Hey,
will
Natasha,
spend time and value the items to
Uh-oh.
You can ask her to turn off her video.
reporting on the same. Does that make sense?
yeah,
I think-
hey, Natasha, something
Yes.
that might help is if you will mute your microphone. I know this is the old guy telling the young gal how to do
Oh, that's
technology,
fine.
but
That's fine. I have
we're getting a
no...
little bit of a feedback, so on that.
Oh.
Emily, if this
Besides,
hasn't,
it gave me a chance to mute Kurt.
He's
Right idea, wrong person.
Sorry, what are you saying, Phyllis?
Emily, you offered to turn your video stream off. You want to try that to see if that works? Because we
Actually, I
lost
think-
part of your conversation.
I think we might still be muted. Hang on, I don't know how to do this. Hang on. What's happening? Uh-oh. I think I muted us and I don't know how to undo it. It should be
not
simple.
muted.
You can hear us?
Yes.
Okay. I got the symbol on. Okay.
Emily, you offered to turn your video stream off because you suspected your Wi-Fi is an issue. Do you want to try doing that to see if it helps?
Uh-oh. Did we lose Emily? I'm trying to find video.
What's that mean?
Emily's frozen. Oh,
Can you?
she might have disappeared. Okay.
Is everybody else on?
Yes.
It says Emily left group chat. Hang on. Could be a problem.
Till she gets back on, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
The Collective Impact link on their website, that sounds very intriguing. I love the way that it looks, and especially as we're working with Chris as a connector, and the advisory board, if you can see who they have on their advisory board, it's quite a strong, dynamic board. with a variety of strengths there: academia, ag, government. It doesn't look that dissimilar to what we may be wanting to do. And I liked her comment about efficiencies. Kind of links, in my opinion, what Katie found. But we can talk about that later. It's just something I wanted to say before it fell out of my head. And Mike and Phil, whatever happens with that smaller group with the video or the film could be an opportunity to build that, whatever we want to call it, but that invested advisory council board. Are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm hearing you. I think there's a lot of the element that I would be most interested in, I guess, if we get Emily back on or talking with Jody and all. Kurt, you were there at the workshop that they did 2 years ago in Indianapolis, where Nick Mink talked about the initial formation of this. And so some of the key things to be aware of are the capacities that they had internally that were helping facilitate that whole formation process. Obviously, Emily is able to kind of give us that brief intro into what it means from a community development standpoint, how the metrics play in and how this all aligns with, community or collective impact as a strategy. But there was a lot of internal expertise and capacity just in terms of process that they relied to get this underway. And so, that's something that we have to be taking into account is, what kind of expertise do we need in the mix, either through consulting or just through finding people in our own community that have that capacity to kind of help guide this structurally. Nick Mink was, this was, I want to verify this, but my understanding is that this was in many ways his kind of his baby initially. Somebody that as an academic was really helping spur this forward as an innovative strategy. Is that, do you recall him, Kurt?
Yeah, I think some of his push when he was talking about it is the capacity part.
So I'm excited to learn more about collective impact too, and see how they kind of settled on this. I think they had some unique things coming together that allowed them, because they didn't have to do the fund the staffing up front. They had some flexibility to move forward with pulling the broader group together. In our case, ultimately we have to consider this the fiscal sponsorship piece. And who has overall accountability for funding that's supporting internal capacity building. We've seen this come up already with the community foundation, and as we look at other grants, maybe something like LISC is appropriate to us too, and we find that kind of that external or national partner. But that's going to be a very key piece that we almost have to at least start exploring before we even conceive of actually recruiting people for some kind of structure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to add what John just texted me. John, I think you're still there, but this is what he texted. Without creating a 501c3, which he says he would support, could our group secure... Oops, hang on a second. Hello? Hey. Hello.
I think Phyllis is talking to Emily right now on the phone.
Thanks.
Okay. She's not able to get back on the Google Hangout, but she does have internet. So,
I keep trying to send her a link, but it's not working, it seems.
Oh, it's internet, but it's not functioning. Mm-hmm. Okay, how bizarre would this be if I put you on speaker? Would everybody be able to hear you?
Bizarre.
How's this for 19th century? Okay, hang on a second.
Smoke signal.
But basically what John was saying is that Oh man, I wish you could connect, John. Could our group secure having an AmeriCorps or Food Corps person as our paid worker for the group? I also wonder if we, as Goshen College, could justify a work study paid student, could be an agroecology student at GC. I think that's all good things that we could talk about at our meeting with Chris as we're exploring our org structure, possible org structure going forward.
I think those are fantastic ideas, and that's how Whitney became the program manager, was by transitioning out of a VISTA position into a paid staff position.
Were people able to hear Emily? Phyllis has her on speakerphone.
Phil, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Emily, can you hear me?
Emily, can you hear Phil?
I heard him speaking, but I just tried the question, and I'll see if I can understand it.
Okay. Well, maybe it can be relayed. I was when you were off the air. I was kind of going back to my first introduction to the Food Council was at the workshop that Nick Mink presented at 2 years ago, that Jody and Michael had convened in Indianapolis before the Small Farm Conference. And to me, what stands out is the level of expertise and capacity that you had internally with respect to organizing and kind of strategically attending to the process that was needed to pull all these pieces together. And so I'm trying to consider, as much as funding and the organizational structure is ultimately something we have to work with, we have to figure out where is that knowledge, that expertise, that capacity going to come from our group as well.
I heard all of that, so it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's a really important part. Essentially, whether it's at a grassroots level or at a stakeholder level, the process of organizing people, building trust, getting a structure together that people want to be a part of and trust is going to do something and go somewhere is really important. I think part of what worked in Indianapolis, and I wasn't here yet, so this is just me reflecting on what I've seen, is that you had people, I'm going to get sort of academic sounding, but with a high level of legitimacy within the community. They have funds, they have institutions behind them that have a lot of resources, asking them to come to the table, and I think that was really important. You had the public health sector, you had a university, and List is one of the biggest funders in Indianapolis in the community and economic development, and they're the ones who have been the continuous fundraiser, and that's a question of sustainability for us. Is they've sort of stepped away from that now as the Food Council fundraiser, and we as a community, as a collective impact organization, are going to have to figure out how to fill that role together now in a place where List was for a while the one that was doing all that. But anyway, all to say that to have institutions and individuals within those institutions who have sort of decision maker and resource bringer roles, asking people to come to the table, and then, I don't know, I guess where the group knowledge of organization came from, but just seemed to be the right mix of people to pull it together and move it forward, and people who were dedicated enough to see through a years-long process, because it's not going to be something that after a year or two, you've accomplished everything. You have to have worked together for a long time, is what you would say, before you're able. And we still have it. For 4 years, and then we still haven't established our metrics to measure the impact of the council. On one hand, it's kind of worrying, but on the other hand, we're just building up to it, and luckily we have stable enough resources that we can take the time to build up to that.
So, Emily, Phil asked a great question. When I'm looking at your advisory board, there are a lot of people on there. I do see an executive committee that includes 3 people. So I suspect as you moved forward, you didn't have all 30 people that, or 20, I'm not counting fast enough, on your advisory committee board make that kind of decision, or how did you know
Well,
who?
when you sort of mentioned that advisory board was rolled over from the food fund selection committee, and so the selection committee was pretty big. Again, I wasn't here for that, but I would say it was between 15 and 20 people involved, and so that was able to generate a core group. And people liked being on the selection committee. They still do, because it's a role that has some talent with it. You're handing out money, and so if you're used to handing out money, it's not that much, but if you're a member of this community where people are always buying for grants and you can step in and try to actually distribute some resources, that was an exciting thing for people. And it was, I think, an easier thing to get them to the table to do that than to say, come on, we need to form an organizational structure for a food council.
Mm-hmm.
The food fund framework brought people together pretty well.
So our challenge might be to look at who our equivalent of that food fund process or organizing the strengths in that committee might be for us.
Phyllis, I thought I heard you.
What's happening?
I lost her.
Uh-oh.
Let me try again. I lost her. Must be her connection.
I don't know why I can't get people to dial back into the chat portion, because they can listen. Like John, Jody, and Emily are all listening. They
Right.
can't say anything.
So is Emily in Marion County as well, or Hamilton County? Where's this at? Indy, Marion County.
She's in Marion.
Is that where she lives?
Yeah. She's the Purdue Extension in Marion County.
So it appears that we have better broadband connections in Amish country than they do in Marion County.
And you know what? The bizarre thing is, we're on the public domain at EGH in the basement.
Yeah, the key word in your sentence, Mike, was appears. We'll never catch up to South Korea.
Emily, are you there?
South Korea. There's a goal.
Emily, are you there?
Yeah.
Let me try her again. Jody, are you on the line? You can't talk to us, but that's exciting. You can hear us.
An achievable goal.
I'm looking at the Indy Food Council. I looked at it before, but it's make advisory board and the collective impact.
Hello again.
Hey, hello.
I don't know what happened there. But I thought, Phyllis, that you were saying something and then I couldn't hear it.
I guess your selection committee was influential in how, at a key point where things started to solidify into a collective impact model and being connectors. And I guess maybe, am I interpreting correctly that that would be our challenge or our charge to find who that may be for us to make a difference in our community, which may not be the same as Indy, but obviously, but we have those assets and our intern is aggregating that information, and that may be helpful.
Throw from Jody.
Yeah, Jody says, hi Jody, super frustrated that I cannot connect. Here are my thoughts. Consider what it would take in your community to
I don't know why I can't hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Maybe it's your speakerphone, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe it's something that but what I heard you say was you felt like your challenge was to have something that brought people together like the food fund.
Right.
And I think that is true, but it doesn't have to be a fund. You don't have to fundraise. We had something like $60,000 to give away that first year, thanks to less fundraising. In total, over 3 years, we've given away about, I think, $120,000 through that fund. But that is not a necessity to have that chunk of money to start with. I was talking to someone in Cleveland about they have the Cuyahoga County policy council, and she said this woman who was part of Extension, she moved on, so that what she thinks is important is to have some achievable small wins for the community. And so for us, maybe that was a food fund, and that was an achievable small win because one of the conveners of the council is a very proficient fundraiser. But that could be something else for you. We also had the Food Fellows program that we need to mention on our website, where we had essentially bring together college students who are looking for an internship. This is a way that you can get a little extra capacity to organizations doing food work around your area, maybe your city or your boundary, and also give some actual experience for college students who are interested in food work. So that was a matching program. The council essentially just took any applications and put students into their role. And it did take a little bit of funding because the students are paid, but that's a great way that you can start pulling together people so they're all the food fund or food fellow hosts. You know, you have a reason to bring them together. It's an infusion of resources, and it doesn't take that much money. It does take some administrative time, you know, that, but I think that in addition to thinking through the structure and the long-term strategy, some sort of quicker, achievable things would be strategic to think about too.
That kind of goes along with what Jody just emailed us that I'm going to read. First, consider what it would take in your community to create legitimacy. You are a rural council that will look a lot different than something in Indy. And then 2, starting with networking and communications focus can create your organization's worth. And 3rd, your org may need the nonprofit title to work with AmeriCorps, grant organizations, etc., to build capacity.
Yeah, I think those are all great points and suggestions, and it's true that the Indy Food Council is going to be unique in some ways in the state because of the level of urbanness about us, and that we're pulling from 1 million people, and that we have a huge number of what you say organizations or stakeholders that we're trying to tie together. You might have, in some ways, an easier task finding and pulling people together because there are less people. That creates its own set of challenges. But yeah, I think those are really good. One of the points I wanted to make, and I'm going to make it now because who knows what next technological difficulty we're going to have, is that I think one of the best things about the Indy Food Council and the Collective Impact Framework is that it acknowledges the value of everybody's work that they're already doing, and then invites them to build upon that by collaborating. Because everyone's already collaborating to a certain extent, but it could be more wider spread, and we could, as I mentioned, have some of these efficiencies we don't have. But so the first launch meeting of the Indy Food Council, I wasn't in this position yet, but they had everyone that was there fill out not a detailed, but a plan for a work plan almost, so that we could capture what they're already doing and what was kind of in the pipeline for their organization in terms of food work. So they're saying to everyone there, like, we're really interested and we think it's really important to know what you're already doing, and that's where we're going to start, and we're going to build on that to coordinate and do more and better work around this together. And so that's really the power of the collective impact framework. You're not trying to do something new or different. You're trying to weave together everything that's already happening.
So
but that in itself is really different, and I think it's important.
I think that's great input. I think one of the things, I'm going back to what Jody said, if we look at a rural community, would you...
I'm losing your audio again, Phil.
Okay. If you... Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. If we're looking at... I'm looking at what Jody sent. If we're acknowledging we're more of an ag community, Jody, I don't know if you can email us, but would that collective impact model, in your opinion, work for a rural community like ours? And
are you asking Jody?
Yeah, maybe Jody can email us back.
Well, did you see the three? Did we talk about the three things she responded with?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess one thing to note too is that although the way our narrative goes is that we chose not to be a 501c3 in order to be a collective impact organization, but those are not mutually exclusive. You can be a 501c3 that isn't functioning as a collective impact organization. But in that case, the backbone organization, as it's called in the collective impact framework, would be probably funded through that 501c3, whereas in our case, it's not. It's a member organization who funds the backbone.
Anything else from anybody else? This obviously didn't end up optimally with everybody being able to participate. I think, in my opinion, it does help us move into Chris's next meeting, which is on the 12th. And we are at close to 11:30. Does anybody else have any questions for anybody? You can text or whatever.
I'm good. Thanks so much from my end, Emily and everybody else for weighing in.
Mike?
Good.
Nope,
John
I'm
or
good.
Jody, if you want to
Okay.
text something, I guess.
All right. And Kurt stepped out. So I guess we do appreciate, Emily, and your participation for this hour and a half. And if you can pass that on to Whitney, and we'll send a follow-up email. We really do appreciate your help, because I know this is, you have day jobs, and it's hard to take an hour and a half out to help us with this. Because I'm sure I'm sure we're not the only ones that are asking to tap into your expertise.
You know what, you're not, and because we're getting requests, but one thing I wanted to mention to you is that we would like to, in the spring, maybe mid-March or so, have a food council summit where we bring together people from around the state who are thinking about these sorts of things. How do we form a council? What's next? Even if you've already formed a council, maybe like the Bloomington Food Policy Council, how do we keep building that so that we can all have a space to meet together and think about these things in the same room?
Right.
So we would love if you guys could participate in that. We haven't picked a date yet, but thinking towards March, because that's when our annual celebration is. We could do those together. We could have the summit during the day, and you could come to our Food Council annual celebration in the evening on the ground.
Sounds good. All right. Well, unless anybody has anything else, we'll sign off, and thank you so much.
Okay. Good luck, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good conversation.
Good. Bye.
All right. Going to stop the broadcast. Thanks, guys. I should be able to have this as a YouTube video that we can share with folks who weren't here as well. So we'll try to figure out what happened with John and Jody if we ever do this again.
Hey, welcome to my world.